Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and this is Get Well with Michelle. First off, I'd like to start off by saying sorry I haven't posted videos lately. I've been going through a really hard time. We had to put down my dog, Potato. This is him. He was my emotional support dog and he had always been there for me, and it was really rough. You know, he was 15 years old, so he was up there in age, but it's just been very hard transition with him not being here, and it kind of came on as a surprise. You know, he was walking around kind of confused, and he ended up having a seizure, and we took him to emergency services, and they said that the best option was to put him down, so we did, and we had him cremated, and he has a little urn upstairs, and so he's with us and watching us always, but I miss him, and so I just want to dedicate this video to him. So I want to start off today's video with the quote of the day, which is, "Mistakes are always forgivable if one has the courage to admit them," and that's by Bruce Lee. So I've been looking through a lot of my videos and noticing that they're kind of boring. You know, it's just me sitting in front of a camera, spewing off a lot of factoids about mental health issues, reading from a piece of paper, not connecting with the audience. And I really do think that this is a subject that needs more scrutiny, so that people can find help, and it can be recognized more, and that people like friends or family can help those who think that someone else is struggling from a mental health issue. So I'm going to go off on a little different format. I'm going to start that by telling y'all my story. I was weird, I was different, I was like, kind of goth, I would say. I wore heavy eyeliner and had the long black hair, and I didn't really fit in with anybody, and and I was bullied a lot. That was the big thing, was I was constantly told that, oh, you're fat, you're gross looking, you read books all the time, like you don't talk, which was weird because I thought I was very outgoing. I guess maybe later on in high school I was more outgoing than I was like in middle school. But yeah, like when you start to like hear things over and over again, then you start to believe them. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself anymore. I saw this fat, disgusting, unworthy person, not worthy of love, not worthy of anything. And I did binge eat a lot younger. I hid food in my room because it was comforting. So, I guess I was, a little chubby, but I wasn't overweight. But, once people started calling me fat and it became like a thing, I decided I wanted to do something about it. And I figured out how to purge. So, I spent a lot of my time in the bathroom purging. After every single meal, I would purge like maybe 8 to 10 times a day. I would binge all night and purge everything I could of, and it was just a terrible cycle. And I lost a little bit of weight, and I got a little bit of attention, and people were like, "Wow, you're starting to look good. Your face is slimming out. You're looking prettier." And that was enough to, build on the cycle of just binging and purging. But I always kind of stayed at the same weight. I never lost a significant amount of weight. And that was really the only reason, that was the only way I knew how to self-soothe. It wasn't until about ninth grade that I that I learned another way to uh, another coping mechanism, which was cutting. Um, and I know it seems really weird that, people see cuts on a person or think about a person doing self-harm and cutting, and they think, oh, that person just wants attention. Or, if they really wanted to kill themselves and they just do it, they wouldn't just cut. But no, cutting or in self-harm, in any kind of self-harm, is a coping mechanism. It's not a great coping mechanism, but it's a coping mechanism. And it got out like all this anger and tension that I felt. You know, I had a bad day, cut myself. Someone called me fat, I burned myself. It just, it gave me a reason, and every little scar was just like a tick mark on the bad stuff is happening to me ometer. Um, and it was really hard. I still have scars today that people ask me about, and, I'm not embarrassed by them now. I say, they made me who I am today. They made me a stronger person. I can look at a scar and remember those bad days and say, hey, I don't have those bad days anymore. So that's pretty much how high school went for me. It was just a mixture of purging and self-harm, and I did have a pretty big group of friends, but no one that I felt strongly enough to talk about talk the talk to talk to talk about these issues too with. Um, I just kind of wanted it. It was my secret, and I just wanted to hide it. And so that was, just living in that secrecy. It was actually very damaging. And a lot of people are like, oh, the parents are always to blame in these kind of issues. Well, my parents, they weren't perfect. They tried to help me a lot. I remember sitting at the dining table for hours, and my mom sitting there, asking me, what's wrong? And I just sat, cross-armed and just, my eyes down. I didn't know how to open up about it. I didn't think I could be understood. I thought that, there was a lot of shame with it. If I told them about my cutting and about my purging, that I would be in trouble somehow, which isn't true. Parents are always just trying to help. They want what's best for their kid. Had I come clean about my issues earlier, then maybe I could have gotten the help earlier instead of, just letting it linger. So it wasn't until college that I finally decided to reach out for help. And, I talked to one of my professors about it, saying that I was having a lot of suicidal ideation. And they immediately pointed me in the direction of a counselor, of a school counselor. And when you say, that you're having thoughts of killing yourself, that immediately raises up red flags. And so they had to call my parents, and so my parents were finally aware that there were some issues going on. And I told them a lot about the depression and the self-harm and that kind of stuff, but I still kept the purging a secret because it was like I could get past the cutting and the depression. Like, that was stuff like I thought they could understand, but there's a certain amount of shame that goes along with eating disorders that you just don't want to tell anybody. It's like, it's just like a mask you have to put on. and say, I'm happy with the way I look and I'm fine. It's just something it's hard to talk about. So during my second year of college, and this is Odom Way College. My first year I went to community college. So my second year, I finally, got to go to an away college, and I was happy. Um, that I started really experimenting with drugs, and drinking. I was like, this is awesome. I can take this or drink that and not have to feel a thing. All these emotions I'm feeling just wiped away with a pill or a drink. I was, without getting too specific, I was early on in college, I was big into cocaine. Um, and, just I like that speedy rush, and I could get more done, and I could stop eating, and I could get more schoolwork done, and I had so much more energy, and I was the life of the party, and I became a real big party girl in college, and that necessarily isn't the best thing because you get kind of a reputation. So all the drugs and drinking can really take a toll on your brain, and when you push all that stuff down, it just spews up, in very unhealthy ways. And one night of partying way too much, I just broke down, and I was in this just depression funk of the century, and I was cutting myself, and I wanted to commit suicide. And it was very serious, and I was actually and I wanted and I was had my first suicide attempt, and I was hospitalized for it. And thankfully I had a group of friends that cared enough to take me to the hospital and say, hey, you have no choice, we are taking you to the hospital, this is serious business. So after spending that time in the hospital, I obviously had to talk to my parents about it. And when I got out and I spent a couple of weeks at home, and when I returned to campus, I decided to see a counselor weekly. But I still kept the eating disorder a secret because you can take away my cutting and that, but you can't take away my purging. And that was the one coping mechanism I would not let go. It had such a hold on me, and I don't know how I managed to keep it a secret for so long, but I did. And it was very unhealthy. So after talking to my counselor and my parents, I actually decided not to return to school. Um, just because I think there was a lot of bad memories there, and some bad boyfriends that weren't the greatest influence on me. And I thought maybe I'd have better luck at another college, so I returned home for a while, and then I was enrolled in another school. Um, but that was just the beginning of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg. Um, so when things were going pretty good for a while. I was on some medication. I was, doing well in school. And when I did first, when I showed interest in the school, the counselor told me that, hey, just FYI, this is a male dominated field. I went into audio recording as my major, and it was a male dominated subject. And I was like, oh, that's fine. Like I got along well with guys in the past. Like, I didn't think it would be an issue. Well, I was in for a surprise. The bullying ended up doubling in factor. I mean, it was awful at this place. Everywhere I turned, some guy was making a crude remark, or, you know, touching me, or, you know, just misogynistic outlooks, and it was awful. I mean, I remember sitting in class one day, and with the teacher in the classroom within hearing distance, and the student came up to me and said, I'm going to commit the next 2 years of your life to making your life so miserable that you're eventually going to commit suicide and kill yourself. I mean, like, call me crazy, and I have. But that's not okay. Like, no one should be able to talk to you like that. And in a, you know, a scholastic environment with, and the teacher just kind of blew it off. And I think he's ended up saying something to me, which I don't remember now, but I went home that night and I just cried and cried and cried, and it was awful. And so I thought to myself, like, how can I make this not happen anymore? And I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, I just want to disappear. And that occurred to me that that's what I was going to do. I was going to disappear. So I started exercising daily for like 6 hours at a time at like 3 a.m. I was doing a lot of cocaine and abusing my ADHD medication, and purging anything that touched my lips. And I was restricting heavily. I mean, I would go weeks without eating. And, if I like felt faint or anything, I would eat like, like a little piece of something, like a piece of lettuce or something. Like, it was unsustainable. But and I, even one day in class, we had to give reports, group reports, and it was my group's turn to go, and we had to stand up front in front of the classroom and give our report. And I did not know what was going on. The world started spinning, and then all of a sudden, bam, I just went out like a light. Um, I just, my body could not take it anymore. I just passed out, and, they ended up calling the ambulance and taking me to the ER, and I got checked out, and, they said that my blood sugar was very low and things like that. But I just said, you know, I don't care. Like, I'm getting skinnier. That's what this is all about. And I lost a significant amount of weight in a very short period of time. And people were actually noticing me more and being nicer to me. And, but, still the misogynistic remarks and the grabbing got worse, um, I guess because I was skinnier. I don't know. But it was not a sustainable lifestyle. Now, during these, like, all during this time is that this is happening, lots of things are also going on. I'm still cutting. I was still wildly depressed, and I was still keeping it a secret from everyone. And, there were several times that I had these, raging parties, or I went to raging parties, and I was sexually abused, um, by multiple men, and that was a very, I don't even have the words for it. I mean, it was astonishing to me that someone could do something like that to another human being. Like, I'm sorry, it still gets to me. Like, how can you just take something from someone like that, and even when they're shouting no, and guys, no is not maybe or yes in disguise. No means no. If they do not want to have sex with you, then that's it, game over. And I don't understand that kind of cruelty. And maybe I'll never understand it, and maybe I'll never I'm sorry. Maybe I'll never be able to forgive those guys that did that to me, but at least I moved on with my life. I did eventually get the help and I got better, but they will always have to live with what they did to me. Um, so moving forward, those sexual assaults, made my eating disorder worse, and throughout the years, it just got worse and worse. I wouldn't eat, I couldn't eat, like, I was broken. Or I'm sorry, I was bent. Because everyone has the capacity to heal again. So no one is completely broken. They're just bent a little bit sometimes. But, you know, I just really struggled throughout those years. And those sexual assaults made life a lot harder. And I couldn't look at myself the same way ever again. And so I just wanted it to disappear more and more. And I became emaciated. I was gray. My hair was falling out. I had like low vitamin D and everything else. Um, I I was just sick, and I was just a shadow of myself. And eventually, I just kind of gave up. I I remember one night, I got completely plastered and went to the grocery store and went down every single aisle and just picked all of the nastiest, carb loaded food I could find and loaded it into my basket, and took it home, and I made everything, and I had it all split, all spread out on my floor of my bedroom, because I did not want my roommates to find out what I was doing. And I would slowly eat something and then purge it up, eat something, then purge it up, eat something, then purge it up. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So I decided just to give up, and I had another suicide attempt. And I finally told the doctors what was going on, and I told my parents. I came clean about everything, because I was not happy, and I was not going anywhere. Like life was just a still picture for me, and I didn't want to live like that anymore. So I stayed a while in the hospital to kind of, get my strength back and get a little bit healthier. And while I was in the hospital, I made arrangements for me to go to my first rehab for an eating disorder. And it wasn't, I'm not going to name names, because, that's not fair or whatever, but name places, but it wasn't the best place. They definitely could have worked harder in some areas, but it did its main goal, which was help me start to eat again. I will never forget my first meal there. It was like walking to the funeral kind of thing, or walking to the execution. And I sat at that table and they put the food in front of me, and I just, like a blank stare came across me, and I started shaking and bawling like crazy. I just could not handle it. So after I got home, um, I enrolled in some outpatient therapy for my eating disorder, and it didn't really. It helped. It did what it was supposed to do, but I quickly went backwards into my old habits because it was what I knew. Um, I just, I saw myself after treatment, and I was like, oh my gosh, I put on so much weight, and it scared me. And I guess maybe I just wasn't ready for the recovery yet. And they say that recovery is a process, so I definitely went through the whole process. um, so eventually I started getting back into bad habits and started cutting and purging and exercising and all that jazz. And my therapist said, I think you need to go back into treatment. So I actually ended up going to a second rehab facility, and we decided that it was probably good if I got away from my home base. And so I went out to Utah, and this place was beautiful, and they had a great program. I mean, I recommend it. It's called Center for Change, and it definitely changed my life. It made me really appreciate the me inside of me. I was writing down affirmations and actually believing them. And, there are still some things that to this day, that I use, like still some um, techniques that I use to help myself through some hard times. Because every now and then, we talk bad about ourselves. It's human nature, say, oh, I look fat. Oh, I look this, I look that. So, but this place was great, and it really soothed my soul. Um, so time goes by after that, and then I was doing a lot better, but us addicts, I was the generic, replace one addiction for another, and that's when my drug addiction got really bad. I ended up having to go into an addiction treatment facility. And it was great. It was a great experience. Before all this, I did meet someone, and his name is Ken, and I love him very much. And he did ask me to marry him. And it's kind of funny because I'm known as the Sagebrush Bride, because Sagebrush is the place that I went to. And I the treatment center actually let me leave for 2 days to go get married, and then I had to return back to treatment. So it was definitely, one for the books. So afterwards, I'm, happily married in my marital bliss. And, things were going pretty well, but I was suffering from some real, like, physical issues. And I'm sorry, some physical issues. And I don't want to go down my whole, like, journey of, all these, health issues that I had within the past 6 years, because it is a long story, maybe for another time. But I was diagnosed afterwards with thoracic outlet syndrome and degenerative disc disorder or degenerative disc disease, and I had to have a lot of surgeries to correct it. And especially after I had my thoracic outlet syndrome taken care of, I started like being able to feel more physical things. and I could feel pain in my spine. And it was, not just like, ouch, that kind of hurts. It was like, I cannot get out of bed. I'm in so much pain. And so, what did the doctors do? They put me on pain meds. Lots and lots of pain meds. Basically, if I asked for it, they gave it to me. And I mean, it went, all the way up, it was like the lowest was like tramadol, and they put me all the way up to like fentanyl kind of pain meds, which is crazy. Um, and it was really, I was living really kind of a low lifestyle, very depressed because I was in bed 24/7 for 5 years. So I actually started shooting up I was prescribed Dilaudid and I started shooting it up. And so, the addiction in me, the addiction disease reigns over me again. And this one was especially hard to kick because it was like, oh, if I get off the pain meds, I'm going to be in pain again. And, well, anyways, long story short, we ended up finding a doctor in India that was willing to do the surgery that I needed, which was a discectomy in my cervical. And I don't know if you can see it. I have a lovely scar right there from my cervical spine operation. And I also had it in my lumbar as well. And I'm still today suffering from issues with it, but it's manageable. And so I was then, during all that time that I was, shooting up afterwards, I entered my second addiction treatment facility, and I decided then and there that this was not going to happen to me again. You know, I was kind of tricked into having an addiction because opioids are in of themselves inherently addictive. Um, if you're on them for over 5 days, your body gets physically addicted to them. So if you don't have them, you become physically ill. You know, uh, symptoms of withdrawal can vary in a range of like um, nausea, diarrhea, loss of appetite, tremors, vertigo, body aches and pains. Cold sweats. It's like basically the worst flu you've ever had. Um, so yeah, that was that was just going to happen. It was just the name of the game. But I did get treatment for that. And I'm happy to say that I am now 4 years sober as of August 28th. And I'm very proud of myself. I think that I've come a long way, and I think my husband would agree. And we have a great relationship now. Um, and yeah, I don't know what else there is to say. I'm happy now. All right, so that's all I have for today. Remember, if you believe you or a loved one is in danger of themselves or others, please call the suicide hotline or take them to your local emergency room. Remember, it's okay to not be okay. Please subscribe.